Keynote, Ken Jenkins.
Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, wait a minute. Now, you all know me a lot much better than that. When I started, let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, it's certainly an honor and a privilege to be here this morning with all of you, with my colleagues, the leaders on the Board of Legislators. But certainly let me start first by thanking the County Association and your leader, Bill Mooney, for not only the opportunity to bring us together to talk about the various issues as they go throughout Westchester County, but more importantly, for his continued and the County Association's continued push to make sure that we're doing the best that we can in the public-private partnership. And I have to tell you that the County Association and Bill Mooney were the only group of people during our budget cycle that even bothered to come in, pick up the phone, and ask us to come in and meet and talk about the budget cycle. And actually took their time out and spent an hour and a half with us to go through our budget. That's the kind of difference that the County Association has made, and let's give Bill Mooney and the County Association a great round of applause for all that. I'm going to start at the beginning, because one of the things that's always interesting to me, and someone asked me when I came in today, they were like, well, what do you do up there, right? But kind of what's your job, right? And that is really important factor we should start with, because the Board of Legislators is the governing authority for the County of Westchester. There's 17 elected officials that do that. And the main part of our job, obviously, is to pass a budget that is recommended by the county executive. We recommend policies, and we establish those policies. We are the lawmaking body. That is where we start. And then we certainly have our executive branch and the county executive Astorino. And he is the one that does the day-to-day operations and carries out the policies that the Board of Legislators enacts. And certainly one of his big functions, and this is the important one that we're going to start with, is that part of his duties is to ensure that he executes and enforces the acts, resolutions, and local laws of the board. That's the key thing. So it always starts good, and when January 3rd, when I was had the privilege for my colleagues to be unanimously elected as the chairman of the Board of Legislators, I had a quote, and everyone likes to use this quote, so I always use it as well. And I said that there was going to be an epidemic of cooperation, right? And people said, well, I'm not sure about that. And I said, you know what, that's not necessarily true. Because what happened is, in the first 2 weeks after I said that, the first month, at the County Association Breakfast in January in 2010, the county executive introduced a health care contribution bill. Right? Now, of course, we hadn't seen it on the board yet, and we found out about it the night before. I got a call at 4 p.m. the night before and said, we're going to talk about this. I said, oh, that's good, no problem. 2 weeks later, the leadership of the board, 2 weeks later, the Democratic leadership of the board had that in front of the Board of Legislators ready to vote. Exactly what the county executive wanted, but only for the people that worked for him. And then we would take the additional time till July, when the program would start, to take care of everything else. But that wasn't good. All right? Now, the Board of Legislators, as you know, went through a huge process through that. And that process saved the county money, because one of the things that was proposed was to go to an outside organization, which in 2011 would have cost us 13% more. If we would have made the moves that were suggested at the time without doing the due diligence that the board's responsible to do, we would not have been eligible for about $2.5 to $4 million of ARRA funding, which we applied for. The county applied for, and by the way, we didn't count that in our budget. So we have $4 million that we expect to get in from the federal government because we're self-insured, and under the president's health care plan that was enacted, we are eligible for that. So we're going to get about $4 million in. That's a good thing. But it's all about balance. The people that pay for the services, the people that receive the services, and the people that deliver the services. And that's both our internal employees as well as some of you that are here that are our valuable service partners. Westchester County has 820 contract agencies that work for it. Every time people talk about public-private partnership and talk about outsourcing, I tell them we outsource a lot of things already. 820 different contract agencies. So, we move forward, and this year we had a lot of accomplishments. And as much as there's been controversy and some battles that you all see, there's been a lot more stuff that we've done together. There's a lot more things that we've done to move Westchester forward together. Now, of course, that doesn't always work well in some of the things that go on in the political realm. And in our difficult economic environment, we have to continue to understand that we have to make sure that have differences, bring those to the table, have conversations, and the board has done what it will always do, which is to try to make things better. Now, my job on the Board of Legislators as chairman is to leave it better than when I showed up. That's kind of what all of us endeavor to do. So, we were able to deliver on that public benefit of that employee reform as far as health care benefits were concerned for non-represented management. That went in place on schedule on July 1st. That was the initial schedule in January, and that's exactly what happened. And that is in place for myself, for Jim, and for Pete, for the county executive, and for all the non-represented managers in Westchester County. We were able to do a merger between a consolidation between the Department of Transportation and Public Works. Now, the board initiated that. Now, I got to tell you, and as long as y'all promise not to tell, right, how it started was in the savings plan in March. And the county executive suggested that we were going to merge the departments, or not to merge the departments, that we were going to eliminate a bus line for folks going from New York City to New York City, basically down the Central Avenue corridor, down to Fifth Avenue, etc. And that had a huge impact on many people in Westchester County that had either bought their homes for a reason or they were going back and forth to work. And it was both sides of the aisle. About 1,000 people showed up at public hearings, and we were able to work through that and maintain that service. And although we did it at a lower cost, we raised the fares of the buses back to where it was before we got the Metro card system. But part of that was because that department didn't want to talk to the Board of Legislators. One of the things that we were able to do is look in the charter and say, oh yeah, we are the ones that the Board of Legislators adds, modifies, and deletes departments. We're the only ones that could do that. The county executive could recommend it to us, but we, at the end of the day, do that. So we said, if you don't want to be bothered with coming to the board and talking to us about what you want to do, we'll eliminate your department, which we did, right? So we merged the Department of Transportation with Department of Public Works, and we were able to save jobs, but we also were able to do better service. We had economic recovery and reinvestment. So obviously we secured over $552 million in stimulus funding for Westchester County. That didn't come to us, it comes to you, right? It goes out to the businesses and various organizations. It comes through the county, but it did not add jobs to the county, right, into the county government. But it certainly helped out in many of the other organizations, many of the projects that we had going on here in Westchester County. We were able to move forward on this thing called collaborative assessment, because as much as we want to talk about tax relief, we cannot have tax relief until we have tax fairness. So a couple of years ago, when I was chairman of government operations, as Bob was pointing out, we had a problem, right? We enacted a budget in my first year, my very first budget in 2007, that was right around 3% of the tax levy. And in my great city of Yonkers, and I see some friends here from Yonkers, that our county tax increase, instead of the 3% that I voted for, turned out to be 24% in the city of Yonkers. And that was because state equalization rates. So we said, you know what, we're going to understand that problem and address that problem and not run away from that problem. So we created a group called Collaborative Assessment that was a combination of municipal officials, assessors, and the county tax collector, which is David Jackson, combined with some state funding that came from a study that Al Del Bello was part of the team in identifying. And we were able to create a group that helped us to create a program that would get us to a place to have tax fairness. Because now, when we do a negative 2.2 tax levy decrease, that means everybody's taxes actually go down. And they don't have to guess on how things work. But we were able to do that. We initiated in January of 2010 item pricing waiver. It's a technology waiver, and that was important for many of the businesses for here in Westchester County, because 2 months after we were able to do that, a little company called Fairway came into Pelham, right? And Al Gata and those folks over there say that's great. But that was because we allowed item pricing waiver. Instead of people having to put little stickies on every piece of item and getting fined $2 million like Walmart was in Westchester County, that we were able to turn around and say we can have this waiver and go into technology where you can use your employee base in a different way to make sure you're servicing your customers better and bringing business to Westchester County and making it easier to do business in Westchester County. You know, we have a really transparent system in Westchester County as far as the county board is concerned. And we were able to take something and make it better. So we already web stream the county board meetings, but as Al was pointing out, sometimes those are boring, right? Because most of the votes that we do on the county board are unanimous. And most people don't recognize that. The majority of the votes that we do on the Board of Legislators are unanimous votes. The battle is in the committee room. The transparency is at the committee room, and the openness is at that. So what we did was we started web streaming the meetings, the committee meetings, so you could sit wherever you are. And now, for those of you that don't have flash systems like iPhones and iPads like me, etc., you can even watch now on those as well. We just did that in January, right? But we were doing that for openness and transparency, so you can sit and listen and hear. And I got to tell you, during the budget process, that people tell you, the Majority Leader Harkin would tell you that we're sitting around the table and commissioners were telling us information, and people's pagers and Blackberries were going off and their iPhones are going off because people are texting us and saying they're not telling you the truth. Ask them this question. We took statistics on how many people were watching the web streamcast as we were doing it. The average was about 800 to 1,000 people during the budget process, and we didn't do the IP addresses, but I suspect that there were a lot of Westchester County addresses that were paying attention to what their commissioners were saying to the people and saying to us on the board.